To the Minister for Transport, Tourism and Sport, the need to amend legislation to address the low rate of prosecutions for drink driving offences. Deputy has 4 minutes.
Thanks, Cathaoirleach. Well, Minister, at the end of August, in collaboration with Ms Susan Gray and the Park Road Safety Group, I received a reply from your colleague, Minister for Justice and Equality, Deputy Fitzgerald, to my parliamentary question 511 of the 14th of July. And this reply detailed by District Court the numbers of persons listed, persons convicted and licence numbers recorded for drink driving offences between January 2013 and May 2015. And as you know, Minister, Ms Susan Gray and Park have done and indeed continue to do absolutely Trojan work in the area of road safety, highlighting loopholes in our legislation and the failure to implement our traffic laws. It was through this representation of Park and their analysis that we discovered truly shocking levels of drink driving prosecutions, not resulting in convictions, as highlighted by the Irish Times this week. Between January 2013 and May 2015, of the 20,000 plus cases listed in court, just 8,291, or 40%, received a conviction, and a minuscule 1,647 had their licence details recorded in court. Just 20% indeed, Minister, of those convicted. Offaly had the highest rate of convictions at 68%, while Kerry had the lowest at 29%, and 21 of the 26 counties had lower than 50% conviction rates. I think you'll agree, Minister, these figures are unacceptable, and it compares very badly with UK and other EU neighbours who have a 97% conviction rate for drink driving prosecution. The Minister's reply to the media this week in the light of these worrying figures was to say that the Department of Transport officials have begun work on consolidating our comprehensive road traffic acts. But I remember asking the Minister Donoghue about this, and on 24th of January he told me, and I quote in question 611, "As I indicated to the House in December last, I propose to begin the process of consolidating road traffic legislation this year, and a considerable amount of work is involved in the exercise, involving, as it does, the examination and review of all primary and secondary legislation going back to 1961, and he reiterated that the work will commence this year, but we're still waiting, Cathaoirleach. And this, of course, type of behaviour by this government, kicking the can down the road, it's become commonplace, unfortunately, in a whole range of policy areas, including housing, healthcare, Irish water, and now the safety of road users in Ireland. And yet another example of this was the Department of Transport's and the Minister specifically misleading the Dáil on the issue of breathalyser test reports being produced and presented in both English and Irish. A month ago, Justice Noonan ruled in the High Court that these reports must be produced in both languages, but on the 24th of March of this year, Minister Donoghue, in response to the concerns of Park and myself, he reassured me in a reply to parliamentary question 984 on this very issue. I'd asked him to amend statutory instrument 541, Cathaoirleach, of the Road Traffic Act 2011 to close any possible loopholes, and Minister Donoghue said, and I quote, "I am satisfied following consultation with the Gardaí that there is no requirement to change the Road Traffic Act 2010 to make amendments of the kind suggested by the Deputy." And quite clearly here, Minister Donoghue, and it's unfortunate that he's not here today, by the way, to take part in this debate, I have to say, he misled the Dáil, and I think, Cathaoirleach, you're a senior parliamentarian, you would agree that he should come into this Dáil and correct the record of the Dáil. He misled the Dáil.
I am not to interrupt or to intervene, but you cannot accuse somebody of misleading the Dáil. It's a serious allegation.
Well, I believe he misled a member of Dáil Éireann in this regard. Today,
you must withdraw that, Deputy.
He gave wrong information to Dáil Éireann. Okay, on this very serious matter in relation to drink driving. Today, the Irish Times covered another shocking story that between January 2013 and March 2015, 521 drivers were already disqualified at the time of conviction for involvement in a collision causing serious injury or death. Minister Fitzgerald couldn't tell us how many of the drivers were actually disqualified when these serious crashes took place. Figures released to me by the Minister showed that 17,481 drivers have been disqualified for road traffic offences in the same time frame. However, on the 9th of April this year, the RSA reported to me that they had informed the Gardaí of just 48 disqualifications. Now, these are also very serious figures, Minister, and the court service informs us or we have heard from the sources in the court service that they believe there is no requirement in law to record the licence of a disqualified driver. When a driver has been disqualified in court, there is no requirement in law. So I'd ask this Minister, and I know you've been thrown in the deep end here by Minister Donoghue, I'd ask you to confirm is that the case this afternoon? Is it the case that there is no requirement in legislation at the moment for the court service to record the licence of a disqualified driver? I think that's a key aspect of your reply. So I have to say the other aspect of this, very briefly, Cathaoirleach, of course, is the cut in personnel and resources for An Garda Síochána carried out by this and the previous government in the austerity years since the Great Recession. And the figures, of course, especially cut in the traffic corps, the figures released also put the spotlight, I think, on the court service and the performance of some district judges and district courts and the seemingly Flann O'Brien or Kafka-esque type atmosphere of some of those courts. So I think it's time to take accountability. It's time for Minister O'Donoghue actually to come into the House to clarify two important points of law, which I put to him this afternoon. I put to you, Minister. I know you're not briefed to reply to that probably, but I'm asking Minister Donoghue come in at the earliest opportunity. I know the Cathaoirleach was making these points here today. He's the very man who would ask for the Minister to come in and correct the record of the Dáil in this regard. Thanks, Cathaoirleach.
Thank you, Deputy.
Thanks, Cathaoirleach. Where do I start? There's about 20 topical issues raised there on that one. I can understand most of them very topical, and we'll certainly get the answers to them, but I won't be able to give you the answers. Most of them are above my pay grade, but I'll get you the answers that you require or you've raised to some of the questions you've had. But in response to the issue you've raised, which is what I'm in here to respond back to, is the issue, the urgent need for the Minister of Transport, Tourism and Sport to bring forward Consolidated Road Traffic Act before the end of the government's term, given the recent revelations. That's the issue you raised. That's the issue I respond to. First of all, to give the Minister's apologies, he couldn't make it here this evening. You know the nature of these it doesn't always possible to change one's diary to be here. But I've no doubt he'd like to be here. And certainly to put on the record, it's not in the nature of Minister Donoghue to mislead anybody or mislead the Dáil. So I've no doubt he'll address that issue that you've raised here, because it's not his nature, and you know the man well, and it's not something he does. And I think he would be willing to admit that as well. So as the Deputy will know, we are currently working on a Road Traffic Bill 2015 with the intention of enacting it before the end of the year. It has been drafted by the Office of the Parliamentary Council at present. This is the current priority in road traffic legislation and will be dealt with before consolidation can begin. The principal focus of the bill is on measures to address driving under the influence of drugs. The new provisions will enable Gardaí to conduct roadside tests for the presence of drugs, make the presence of certain specified drugs while driving an offence, and provide for tougher penalties for those driving under the influence of multiple drugs or drugs in combination with alcohol. The bill will also include measures to ensure mutual recognition of driver disqualifications between Ireland and the UK, and will create an option for road authorities to introduce a 20 km speed limit in built-up areas. After the passage of the 2015 bill, the Department will begin examining the process of consolidation, which is what you've raised here today. This will, as a first step, involve a scoping exercise to estimate what is necessary, how much time will be required, and what resources will need to be allocated to the project. Road traffic legislation in Ireland is based on the Road Traffic Act 1961. This has been amended numerous times, and there have been 15 Road Traffic Acts since that of 1961. There have also been other acts which have made material changes to the road traffic law, including the Local Authorities Traffic Wardens Act 1975, the Dublin Transport Authority Dissolution Act 1987, the Taxi Regulation Act 2003, the Road Traffic and Transport Act 2006, the Road Safety Authority Act 2006, and the Road Safety Authority Commercial Vehicle Roadworthiness Act 2012. There has been widespread agreement for some time now that legislation in this area has become extremely complex and is in need of a consolidation, which is exactly what you're raising here tonight. We would all agree with you, and the Department certainly agrees with that. So we are committed as a government to doing this. However, this is not a short-term project, and it can't be completed in a couple of months. And have someone that was involved in the Companies Act, consolidation process, it's a lengthy process, and to do it right means doing it right, but it also means a little bit of time as well. Consolidation will require more than passage of legislation as it currently stands in a single act. It will entail careful review of the legislation being consolidated in order to identify points where it can be clarified, simplified and improved, and overall will lead to a much more strengthened law when it is consolidated. A project of this kind will require time and resources and will take a number of years. This, for example, has been the case, as I said already, with the Companies Act and with the Finance Act previously as well. But nonetheless, as these precedents have shown, and I can clarify it as well because I was part of it, it is worth doing. And it is worth taking the time to get it right, as such a consolidation can be expected to be the basis of road traffic law in Ireland for many decades to come. While consolidation will be a major step forward, we need to be realistic and to remember that it will not solve all the problems. Road traffic legislation is perhaps the most frequently contested legislation in the land, and is likely to remain so. And of course, this is only right. People are entitled to challenge the law in the courts, and it is the proper constitutional role of the courts to interpret legislation. We should be aware that consolidation, while it should simplify and improve matters, it will not bring an end to this process. But certainly, I think it will help in the outcomes, in my view.
Thank you, Minister. Tommy Broughan.
Thanks, Cahill. Well, the bottom line, Minister, is up to today, I think 127 people have lost their lives on the roads, and many hundreds of more families have also been traumatised by very serious injuries. And I remember when I was a transport spokesperson, at that stage it was calculated that each fatality cost our nation something like €2 billion plus. So it is a very costly and terrible situation in terms of personal pain for individuals and families. And you'd have to ask, therefore, why don't you get the requisite number of, say, young barristers and solicitors and get them working on this and come in here with a consolidated bill? I mean, you could at least give a commitment that would be something that would be a priority. But given that we're talking about such a large death toll, and by the way, if there was a single incident that caused this, as you know, caused 127 deaths, or the almost 200 deaths last year, we'd have major investigations in this House and commissions of investigation and so on going on for weeks and months. Can I ask you, secondly, if you will get the Minister to clarify the 2 points of law I raised in relation to the drink driving printouts and also in relation to disqualified drivers, will he confirm that we don't have that in the legislation? Now, you refer to 2015 Act, or 2015 Bill rather, that's on the legislation, and it's to do, as you know, with drug driving and also the mutual recognition of driving disqualifications with the UK, etc. But is it not possible in that bill to address those two matters which I've raised, to address issues like the non-presentation of licences in court, the reference by judges still to the court poor box, although senior judges have said that that's totally incorrect in law, and the whole issue of how to email or to register a summons, that people can claim they didn't get a summons. We're living in the in the email era. We passed on from the, if you like, the pony and trap and the bicycle in terms of delivering mail. So why can't we have summonses that we all know are actually received by the intended person? And also, can you address the fixed charge processing system? The working group was saying that the third payment option, Minister, after the 56 days, if you haven't paid within that time, you get a third option, and don't have to end up wasting the court's time, etc. So could all of those at least be addressed in the forthcoming legislation? And just to conclude, Cathaoirleach, I mean 77% of driver summons and penalty point offences between 2013 and in early summer 2015 were not convicted, and those convicted, 72% didn't present their licences, 60% of drink drivers were not convicted, and of those convicted, 80% did not have their licence numbers recorded, 71% of drivers using mobile phones when driving were not convicted, and of those, 41% didn't have their licence numbers recorded, 96% of drivers disqualified in court didn't surrender their licence, and 89% of those convicted didn't present their licences, and the court poor box is still being used despite the High Court ruling. So it looks to here, Cathaoirleach, I think you'll agree, as a person who served with distinction for decades in this House, that road traffic law is in a kind of a crisis. We need, given the horrendous deaths and casualties on our roads, we need to finally grasp this whole area, deal with it very effectively, and change the culture that still allows so many of our fellow citizens to die on the roads needlessly. Thanks, Cathaoirleach.
Thank you, Deputy. And Thomas Dodge.
Again, thanks, Deputy, and I would agree with you. It's a culture issue, and all the changes in the world to road traffic laws won't be enough to stop any tragic deaths that are happening on our roads. And we've even one is far too many. Thankfully, there's been great improvement over the last probably 10 or 15 years in road safety and the number of people who be killed on the roads due to successive governments. I think it's a cross-party issue here. We'd all buy into this. There's no issue there at all. Everyone wants this help. So I can assure you it is a priority of this government to try to tackle this. The consolidation process is part of that. And I think you're right. We should try to make that as quick as we can. We should learn from the other consolidation processes. I've been involved in the Companies Law one. We were able to move along quicker than we thought we would in some cases, so that needs to be done again. Extra resources in terms of man hours were found for that. Likewise, need to be done here again as well. So I think there will be a drive to make this happen, because it does make it easier for interpreters of legislation if it's consolidated. It makes it a lot easier, and we'll get better outcomes. There's no doubt about that. But the issue of road safety and road deaths on the roads from accidents, or I would say incidents, because most most crashes, but I would say incidents. Most cases on the roads are avoidable, so they're not accidents, they're incidents. And that is a cultural issue, it's an attitude. And I think that goes way beyond transport or law or the Justice Department. It's into education, it's into our whole awareness of this. But I often say it's our attitude on the roads. Most people in Ireland try the lottery every now and again because they believe they can win the lottery and they see all the ads that it really, really could happen to you. So they'll roll a dice and they'll try it. But they never think of that in the negative. Most people assume that they'll never be in an accident or they'll never be in an incident. And yet the chances are much higher than they will be winning the lottery. So there's something wrong with people's mindset, and it's in all of us and it's in everybody. And we have a mindset issue here, we have an attitude issue to the roads, and it's something that we have to drive through all our departments. And I'm in the Department of Education, we have a major role there as well. But it's a full cultural issue, but it's to acknowledge that incidents and accidents could happen to any of us. And we need to do it's an all our gift to try to prevent them, and it's all our roles as well. Legislation is part of that, and I'll certainly bring back the issues that I can't answer. The other questions that you need detailed answers, I'll bring them back to the various ministers as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister.